to the Go-Kart Guru Technical Calcs Performance Program video. In here on our webpage we have Technical Calcs, and you can go down to the Go-Kart Performance Program, click on it, and in this program is everything you need to calculate your drive line for a Phi Alpha 10. And if you want to get a quick rundown on how to do that, just go down to the calculate button here, press calculate, and you'll see what it can do in a normal operation. It will tell you what you can do to change the drive system. And one thing of note here is it's a 1-ratio drive. In other words, there's a 12-tooth clutch and a 72-tooth rear sprocket. That's what's set up for on this go-kart. And then the jack drive is basically nulled out because both are the same size. The tire diameter is 12 inches and so forth. So this go-kart is set up to be 160 pounds for the frame, 165 pounds for the person, 5 horsepower at 5,000 RPM max, but it's 3,600 RPM is when the 5 horsepower kicks in, and the actual clutch engagement is at 2,200. And the reason why that's important here is that if you were to do a graph of the 5 horsepower motor, you'll see that it actually is less than 5 horsepower at 2,200 RPM, and it takes that into account. This one has a hill angle of 10 degrees. We can null that out as well, and it'll give you just a straight line calculation. And basically everything is good, and it will take you, it will go for a top speed of about 30 miles an hour. Flat surface acceleration is 5.23. Let's see, there's some other data here. It used to have an old program of 0 to 60, but that was kind of silly, so we took that out. So basically it tells you what kind of acceleration you have here. Just to give you an idea what it is, 32 feet per second is 1 G, and typically the only way you can get that is if you have 4-wheel drive, and so what we have here is about a fourth of that. So that's how this program works. We'll get back into it with some more advanced calculations. This program is standard on the web page, so if you want to play around with it, go ahead. But it also comes with our driveline program that we offer as well. Okay, welcome back to the Go-Kart Guru Go-Kart Performance Program tutorial. And in here again, we're going to go into our go-kart program, and we're going to make this 0 right away. Make the hill 0. Okay, so we'll go down to calculate. Calculate will tell us what a 5 horsepower motor is going to do with the Phi Alpha 10 frame. And basically, as you see, we have 5.23 feet per second squared for acceleration, and it's telling you the tire's grip. So now what we're going to do, we're going to play around with the program and see what we can do to do some changes. And down below it has some recommended drive system changes. And I just want you to understand there are trade-offs. So what happens here is that the current system's okay, but you can upgrade for more acceleration is what it's telling you, and it's giving you a suggestion. And the suggestion is to upgrade the ratio to 9.14 to 1. Well, you see the maximum speed is 19.5 miles per hour, but it does increase a flat surface acceleration. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna play around with cranking it up to 9.14. So how will we do that? Well, you see you have a 5.93 to 1 ratio, so we can go up here and we can play around with the ratio. Now keep in mind this is not realistic, because look at the diameter of the sprocket here. It's 8.6, and the diameter of our wheel is 12. But from a calculation standpoint, it doesn't care. So we're going to do that anyway. We're going to do a calculate, run it. And you see now it's the same exact diameter as the wheel. And so what do we get for, we got 8.24 to 1 ratio. So we're going to just keep cranking it up until we get that ratio that was suggested down below, which was 9 essentially. So we'll calculate it. So we're 9.89. And what you're seeing here is that the clutch is okay. There was flat surface acceleration. The tires gripped, so it's not slipping. And we got our miles per hour around 18, which isn't fantastic. But basically what that's showing you is that with this ratio, if you got to this ratio, you would get that acceleration. Okay, that being said, what can we do to do an equivalency with a jack drive? So here's what you do. You might have to do some math in your head, but I'm not real great with math in my head. So what you're looking at here is the big sprocket. That's what this is showing here. And the big sprocket was small. And then this is the jack shaft drive sprocket right here. So what we're going to do is basically this is going to be jumping to here, and then this one's going to be jumping to the back axle. Okay, so what we're going to do here with our jack drive is we're going to put 30 teeth in here. And then this one here, we're just going to leave at 10, and we're going to see what happens. So we calculate, and you can see our ratio is immense. See that? It went to 17.54. So we went a little overboard with our jack drive. So we're going to drop it down to 20, calculate. Now it's 11.72. It's still pretty steep. We're going to go 15, calculate. We're at 8.82, which is closer to that 9. So we're going to bump it up a little higher, 16, calculate. And so it's 9.4. All right, so let's see what our calculation is. The tires gripped, we have our acceleration. We're closer to what it was recommending, a 9.14. I believe the 9.14 is a magic number of a quarter a G. So that's the basic way you play with the jack drive. So when we come back, we're going to do some playing around with horsepower and see what that does to the program. Okay, you may have been playing around with this program and you're wondering why in the world it says tires gripped or tires slipped, and how does that work? Well, the way it works is, remember, 1g acceleration is 32.2 feet per second squared, and 1/2 of that is approximately 15 point whatever we have here. So the way that works is that it assumes that the go-kart is a 50-50 weight distribution, and it assumes that you have a live axle in the back so that both rear wheels are spinning. And so then the best that you're going to get with that go-kart with a 50-50 weight distribution is 1/2 of it is going to grip the ground, so you're only going to get 1/2 G. So that's what it's basically telling you. Also, a side note is that even though you cranked up the horsepower, the maximum speed you're going to get out of this go-kart setup is 30.08. So the only way to get this thing to go faster is to change the ratio, and you could change it here. Let's change it to 65 and calculate, and you'll see that you go 33 and the tires gripped. It dropped your acceleration though, so you can up the horsepower. So let's do something funny here. Let's play with this and drop this to 30 and just see what happens. So we calculate it, and you can see our miles per hour is just crazy fast, but our acceleration is way down. In fact, it's down to where a regular Phi Alpha 10 is with its standard 72 tooth. So basically there's trade-offs. This program will show you those trade-offs, and the nice thing about it is it's a standard program right on the website. Okay, welcome back to the Go-Kart Performance Program. We are going to be playing around with horsepower now to see what happens in the program for acceleration. So we've nulled out the jack drive and made it straight. And basically what we're playing with here is what will a horsepower increase do. So I found just driving the go-kart itself that around 8 horsepower is actually a nice sweet spot for acceleration. So we'll see what that does in the program here. So it bumped it up to 9.93 feet per second, and it's telling us that the tire's gripped, and our max speed is 32 miles per hour. That's what it's suggesting. If you want to bump it up, it's 30 miles per hour here. Or it actually is suggesting to drop the ratio to 4.81. I guess that would just give you a higher top end. Here's the issue if you do that. If you play around with that ratio, if you want to climb a hill, suddenly it's not so fantastic. So the clutch is smoking and it will climb the hills but slowly. What that's telling you is that your ratio is too steep. And that's where the variable speed drive belt drives come into place. They drop down in ratio to like 19:1 for climbing hills. It's kind of like putting in grandma gear, and then it can handle it. And then when you get to a regular operating RPM, it will raise the ratio to something like this here. So what you're seeing here is that there's an optimum ratio. It will climb a hill, but it'll climb it slowly. And that's kind of what we deal with our go-kart. We actually have a racing engine on it, which is about 9.5 horsepower. And if you get to a hill, it can smoke the clutch. Our driveway at the worst spot is around 10 degrees. So that's why I use this number. And it will climb the hills, but slowly. If you are trying to start from a dead stop, you pretty much have to be doing a rolling run for it to actually work. Okay, welcome to the technical calculations section. In here you'll see a bunch of things about how you can design your own go-kart. And at the top of the list are some programs. We're going to go to the design toolkit, so we'll click on that. And basically inside this design toolkit you'll see that you can do some evaluations of your go-kart. There's a go-kart dynameter program, the go-kart performance program, and the flyby program. We're going to go to the go-kart dynameter program, and we just click on that. And it takes a minute because my computer is hyper fast. Okay, so basically what we have here is a 0 to 200 feet a run. So it's a dead stop. So what you're going to do is you press your timer, you put your go-kart, measure out 200 feet, and then you press your timer and figure out how long it takes to go 200 feet. So in here, we're just going to put 8 seconds. So we calculate, and you see that that would be 3.782 horsepower. So that's not a real great performer. So let's throw in a different number. Let's throw in 6 and calculate. As you can see, you're at 8.9654 horsepower. I believe our actual time was 7 seconds. So let's calculate that again. And we are around 5.64 when we did this calculation. And back then in the day, if you do some reading here, it says that we used this program to figure out if the supercharger, which we were putting on the go-kart, was doing anything. And it did. It added a little bit of horsepower. I think it added about 0.5 horsepower or something like that. And but more the supercharger added to top end performance. It acted like adding an extra set of valves to the engine. It allowed it to crank up faster. So in here, it'll give you 0 to 60, theoretical 10.78 seconds, but the actual maximum speed is 38.94. Now in here, it does some calculations for you based on, like the other program, what you have for weights of the frame, the weight of the person, chain pitch, and this particular program does not do a jack drive. So that was why we developed that other program. People were asking for jack drive calculations. So that's this go-kart dynameter program explains. So let's go back to the toolkit again. So you click on toolkit, and you'll see there's a go-kart performance program. We're going to jump to the flyby program. So you click on flyby program, and basically all this is going to tell you is how fast does my go-kart really go. So as you can see, it's saying it took 5.8 seconds to go 200 feet on a flyby, and that's how fast it would actually go. So if it took 4 seconds to do that, that's how fast it's going. So that's a way that you can just use a regular stopwatch and do some hand calculations to figure out what your go-kart is doing. So again, let's go back to the go-kart technical program. See if it'll go back. Okay. So we'll go to the go-kart performance program, and I believe this one is the predecessor to the program that we have up from before. Instead of throwing in a time, now you basically start throwing in data, the chain pitch, clutch pitch diameter. It will calculate all that. All you have to do is throw in the 12 teeth. You put in your chain pitch, and it will help you figure that out. So for example, let's put in a 0.5 because you actually have that for your go-kart. You have a 1/2 inch pitch, and it'll tell you what it's going to do in a 200-foot section. And it's going to do 6.84 with a 5 horsepower motor, and it'll tell you I think there's a 0 to 60 thing in here. There it is, 10.29 seconds, and the tires did grip. So this is one that you can play with. When we come back, we're going to do the center of gravity program and the stress program just to see what that does. Okay, welcome back. We're talking about the go-kart stress program, which is found under the design toolkit. Basically what this is doing is it's helping you determine where to support your live axle to see if it's going to bend or not. So basically, like it says, the following program calculates the stress in the rear axle of the go-kart. Often the rear axle will get bent due to various loadings. You will notice that the data put into the program is close to failure. What this means is that the chances of bending the shaft are very high, especially if the go-kart is to be ridden over rougher style terrain. To get the shaft to not fail, play with the width of the go-kart frame or supports, and you will see that the wider frame, the less the stress. However, going wider with the frame adds weight and other problems, not to mention handling and center of gravity issues. So basically we're going to calculate this here. What it has is a 200-pound frame, 165-pound person with a safety factor of 2.5. What that means, that safety factor, is that that's how far away you are from the actual shaft bending. So I'll explain that in a minute when we do this calculation. So we have a 1-inch shaft. The frame width is 20 inches, and that's actually what a Phi Alpha 10 is. So we'll calculate it, and the total weight is 365 pounds on the wheel, and the distance to the support. In other words, here's the bearing right here. Typically, it will bend like a diving board right where it's supported. And the force on the end of the shaft is 228 pounds. If you take an analysis of that, I believe that I'd have to take a look again at that number, but I believe that that is an approximation of how much force would come into the wheel when you hit a bump. So the moment of inertia is 0.049. It actually calculates that because of the shaft diameter. And the stress on the shaft is 27,000 psi, or closer to 28. Well, the actual shaft will deform at 36,000 RPMs, 36,000 psi, And as it's saying here, the stress is too close to the margin. So the safety factor, let's just drop that to 1 just to see what happens here. And you'll see that's indeed what it was happening when you jumped it to 2.5. It basically was cranking that force up on the end of the shaft, because 365 divided by 4 is approximately that number. We're assuming 50-50 weight distribution, so one wheel will get that kind of weight. So as you can see, if we crank the safety up to 2, calculate, you'll see the stress is okay, but 2.5, that means you're out running around in a go-kart in the backyard where there's a lot of ruts. You might end up bending your shaft. So we'll see. We'll go to 2.5 because we think we're going to be hitting a lot of stuff, and we're not throwing a suspension on the go-kart. So what do? Well, you can crank this diameter up 1.25 and see what happens. And as you see, we backed away, our stress has dropped way down, and the maximum allowable stress is 36,000. We can actually increase this number too, say you got a high alloy shaft somehow, and you'll see that will help too. I think, oh, I guess you can't do that with this program. It assumes basically 36,000 as a maximum, and basically that number here, 36,000, means that that's the lowest grade steel that you can have. So that's why I did that number. I didn't make it so you could change the maximum stress. It was just basically doing it for you here. Okay, welcome back to the Go-Kart Engineering Toolkit. And we're going to be talking about the gravity program. And basically what this is a program that helps you figure out where your center of gravity is. And so it's basing, as you can see, you can barely see this, but what you end up having to do is grab each piece and you have to figure out how much it weighs. And then you grab a theoretical point, which would be the rear wheel, and you just make a measurement for every piece that's on the go-kart, and that would include the person, where its center of gravity would have been. So this is all a theoretical thing. So we've done that already with this program. You can play around with, this is designed for the Phi Alpha 10. So basically each part has an evaluation number on it, and it has a description of what they are and how much they weigh. Keep in mind, if you have a tube on this side, you have to include the tube on the other side. If you have a tube right here, you have to include, well, you only have one. These tubes would be all by themselves. So anyway, so we're going to do a calculation, and the total weight is 384 pounds. The weight of the frame is 183. The force front is that, and is 166, and the force back is 181. So the way the go-kart is set up is we're a little lighter in the front. We're close to 50-50 weight distribution with somebody who weighs 165. So let's actually put in somebody who weighs a little bit heavier. See what that does. So the percentage on the back is increased a little bit. See that? So let's throw in someone who weighs even more. Let's put 250 in there and see what that does. See what it's done, because of where the person is sitting, it actually makes it more 50-50 weight distribution when you get a heavier person in it. It kind of shoves some of the weight forward, so that's what's going on there. So that's the 50-50 weight distribution calculation. When we come back, we'll talk about the stress program.